Ashley Williams, so great to hang out with you this afternoon. It's so funny because we were just had like a tech issue, and which is so ironic because you come from a tech company, which is unusual in our world to actually bring this work to the tech platform. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because it is unique and different, and you've got such an interesting background. So to get started, I'd love to hear your background. How did you come to do the work you're doing, and how did you find and put together Climb and bringing
Yeah,
technology to yoga and mindfulness?
there are two pathways to take to tell a story. I will start with the education pathway. So, my background is in education, former teacher, school leader. When I became a school leader, I was a director of climate and culture. That meant that I was responsible for the emotional health of the staff and the students. And so that inspired me to learn more about socio-emotional learning, and mindfulness was a trampoline from that. So that's
Mm.
one way that I got to where I am now with Clymb, which is a mental and emotional health software for school-age children. The other is my own personal experience. When I was in college, I want to say maybe my sophomore year, I experienced situational depression, and I was looking for proactive approaches to manage my emotional experiences. And I learned of mindfulness and started to practice it then. And it changed my whole life. It absolutely changed my whole life. And as a part of the path, I joined a meditation community. And when I was in the classroom, I used to pull in mindfulness, so integrating it into the classroom. And my kids loved it. And so I thought, there has to be a way to make this scalable and effortless for
Mhm.
our teachers. And so my mom went in that direction, and that eventually led me to leave my job, to resign from my leadership position at the school to tinker. I went to John Hopkins Social Innovation Lab and did a lot of research and talking to a lot of teachers and students to build what would eventually become the Clom software.
That's incredible. Can we go back to Ashley? Can you speak a little bit more about your leadership position? Because as you know, SEL can is well here in the United States, it's on a spectrum, right? And so either some schools are diving right in, buying SEL programs, doing everything they can, thinking about the emotional health of children in as it relates to getting having children ready to learn. And then
Yeah.
other school districts, other states, other regions are saying, no, this isn't for us, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us more about that because that's very unique for your school to hire a particular position
Yeah.
within this area, right?
Yeah, I think that it can be unique, and I think that you're absolutely right that different school districts have different priorities. But my take on it is that the adolescent brain is actually incapable of learning when it is in a stress response. So until we teach emotional regulation skills and integrate it into the classroom the same way that we integrate mathematics, language arts, science, we are setting our children up for a deficit in academics because they're not able to consume the actual material. So the school where I worked had that perspective. And social emotional learning, depending on the politics of the day, can get a good name or it can get a bad name. But it's basically learning how to regulate your emotions and
Right.
also understanding how to engage with other people when they have emotional experiences. So it is really just an intelligence of emotions. Like, how intelligent are you when it comes to yourself? And the truth is that most adults lack intelligence when it comes to themselves. And unfortunately, unless a school or district cares about that skill set, we're not teaching those soft skills to our children, but that has a negative impact. There was a study done at Columbia University that showed that for every dollar that we invest in emotional intelligence tools and social emotional learning, there is an $11 yield in long-term benefits. So that includes higher earnings. You make more money when you have emotional intelligence. That includes the dynamics of the community that you live in. You have a healthier community when you practice social emotional learning skills. So I think my goal in life is to reframe the conversation around the importance of SEL as well as mindfulness. I think that these are tools that are required for society to function in a healthy way. And And the reason for that is because it helps the human to function in a healthy way. And if you have millions of humans functioning in a healthy way, the inevitable result is that the society, which is just humans interacting with one another, will also function in a healthy way.
Mm. Ashley, you have such an articulate, strong voice around this area. And it's almost like I wish I could picture all of us in our industry like lifting you up, right? To be a speaker of this work that we do. I'm curious about, like, I think about Dr. Mark Brackett, right? The from the emotional intelligence out of Yale
Yeah.
department, and his book on permission to feel. And so there's that body of work that he's doing around the ruler approach in schools
Yeah.
around SEL, right? But what I find really interesting about your work in particular, you are weaving in these yoga, meditation, mindfulness practices as well. Can you
Yes,
talk
I'm
a little
weaving
bit
in the
about,
science of those practices and what
yeah,
those practices do to your brain by
yes.
stimulating the relaxation response. So let go of if there is, and often there is not in the Western tradition, any religious association. It's the actual techniques and the tools that are scientifically proven to retrain neural pathways. And so that's what we do with Clymb. So we are giving kids simple, engaging tools to understand and manage their emotions so they can thrive. Like most of us cannot even identify how we feel. You say, "How are
Mhm.
you feeling right now?" It's like, "I don't know. I might be anxious." Like we don't know the difference between rage and, discomfort sometimes. And the ability to pause and to notice how you feel
Mhm.
and to engage in a healthy meaningful way. So that's what we teach, and we do use mindfulness. So mindfulness just means the ability to pay attention in the present moment with total acceptance. A lot of us struggle with so many words in that sentence: present moment, acceptance, and it is the cause of so much internal grief for us as humans. And if you cannot accept what is, you cannot make rational decisions for the best way forward for your life, for your society, for so many things. So yeah, so basically with Clom, we are teaching those mindfulness, but we're using SEL, the castle competencies, as a vehicle. So what that means is that if a young person signs into Clom, we do a quick check-in with them so we can understand their emotional health status. That means that the software is going to determine, man, Ashley needs some support with her relationship skills. She needs some support with her responsible decision making skills. Then it's going to push resources to me, and the resources are like animation. Some are songs. Some are mindfulness audios. There are many different resources to increase my competency over time. So I don't have to do anything but engage with the platform, and the software is going to navigate me. It's going to help me climb, to a higher level of my social emotional learning understanding. And then the second part of it is that it's collecting all of that data. So no kid falls in a crack. My teacher, my parent, my counselor, my therapist, whoever is my adult stakeholder will get a notification if I need additional support. You should check in with Ashley. She's reporting emotions that indicate she needs adult support. And then it's going to aggregate that information. So if you're in a school district, you can see what's happening with your student population. And my goal with this, our mission is to spread happiness. I think that happiness is a human right, and so often dysregulation, your own dysregulation, gets in the way of you just being happy, just sitting in a
Mhm.
chair for no reason. So that is my goal.
Yeah, I love it. Talk us through the tech approach because I am pretty old school. So I'm trying to imagine, right? How does that work? That is incredible. You're coming from a basis of Castle for the competencies, and then talk us through like what does that tech-based approach look like? You said that there's activities, it could be animation. Can you give us example of just one practice that they might log into and do?
Yeah, and I will also say that the software is differentiated based off of age group. So this example I'll give you is going to be for someone in middle school. So I log into the platform. There's a animated dashboard. It's going to ask me about like how am I feeling right now. You've probably seen those before with emojis. I'm going to select angry. And then it's going to give me an emotion wheel. so that I can not just say I'm angry, but what does that anger actually look like? What does it feel like? And then it gives them an opportunity to evaluate what those emotions are. And so maybe I've determined that my anger actually looks more like I'm just frustrated right now. I'm kind of frustrated about a situation. And then there are other animated screens related to the castle competency. So in the moment, what does my responsible decision making look like? What is my relationship skills looking like? Once you get through that, based off of that data, plus what the software already knows about you, it's going to give me three resources that are perfect for where I am. So what I get and what you get will be completely different. And then based off of those three resources, I can pick one. And we call it Clomb Tom. So in this example, say I get a mindfulness audio, maybe 60 seconds, 90 seconds, but it's specific to my feelings of frustration. So that mindfulness audio is designed to help me regulate that emotion, to change the neural pathway in my brain and to create space. So one, I can observe the frustration, and the ability to kind of notice like, hey, this is actually what I'm experiencing. That's the first part. The second part is to help me how to regulate when I'm in it. And that will be what the mindfulness thing is teaching. So that is a general overview. There are many other features in the platform,
Mhm.
but that is how we teach the SEL skills.
Right. And so what I'm hearing from you, Ashley, is that in reality, when you've got a human to human connection, it's one thing, but we don't have access to oh my gosh, the way you're describing it must be thousands of activities available. Like the
Yeah,
content behind the build of Climb must be enormous. So I would
that's
say
right.
that would be one upside to a text-based approach with Climb is that the individualization, the customization, right, of the approach. So thinking about maybe the downside, is there any disadvantage? And also, I also see the upside of meeting the children where they're at. They love screen, right? They
So
love the
that's
animation, the
exactly right.
gamify.
We meet kids where they're at with the tools to help them pause, breathe, and reflect. I always
Mm,
say Clom is not does not exist to take the place of therapy. Clom does not
mhm,
exist to take the place of the parent. It exists to collaborate, to support, to enhance, to facilitate things that are already happening. It's what we
yeah,
call a tier one resource. Anybody can use this if you're a young person. If you need additional support services, please put your kid in therapy. Clom is not
mhm,
designed for that, but it can
mhm,
help to if they're in therapy, for them to do work outside of therapy. It can help so
mm,
that they can communicate to the therapist, this is what's going on with me throughout the week. The therapist can look at it and see, wow, John, you were mostly angry this week. You want to tell me what was going on? So it helps to facilitate those conversations of healing. And my
mhm,
perspective coming into this with technology is not the enemy, it's how we use it. And so I wanted Climb to be a vehicle to make emotional skill practice consistent, interactive, and scalable, not just for the young people, but for the adults who serve them.
mm,
Because thinking of a classroom setting, our teachers are already overwhelmed. They don't need one more thing to do. So we need something that's effective. We need something that's efficient. We need something that's quick. We need something that will not add additional burden to what's already going on in the classroom in order for it to be
mhm.
sustainable.
Right, right. That's incredible. Can you talk us through a story of a child? Have you heard from, I'm sure you've heard from some of the grown-ups who are taking it. I'd love to hear what a child's experience could be, a success story as such.
Yeah, we recently went to one of our schools in Georgia in Atlanta, and we spoke with some of the kids and the staff there. And there was a young person who had lost a close family member who shared with
Mm,
us how Clom helped them to navigate those intense emotions of grief, of sadness, even of anger for feeling that loss. They had a place to go when they had those feelings to sit with to sit with those resources. So that was very powerful. And the consistent feedback that we get from young people is that they enjoy using the platform. And
mm,
that was important to me when building it. I wanted to build something that kids actually liked, if that makes sense. And so we have found that when kids start to name their feelings and are able to ask for help before things escalate, the outcome is just really great. And so that's why we put so much
Mhm.
emphasis on teaching kids how to be self-empowered and how to self and have a level of self-awareness, which again is one of the castle competencies, because it does help to keep things from escalating. And we see that pretty consistently.
And I can imagine with our young people who maybe are neurodivergent, who don't yet have the words to express themselves or don't yet have the mind body connection to understand what is going on. It allows that, it takes away the pressure of like a therapist. Like I can think about my daughter was never into talk therapy, but this
Yeah.
kind of thing she might be interested in because it's that level of I've got something different and it allows
Mm,
me like a mirror. It
yes.
allows a child a mirror into themselves through engaging activities, which,
Mhm.
and yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying. It's a vehicle. It's something that they can help them feel empowered and take them through this process.
Sure.
So yeah, one of the things that comes up time and time again with, kids yoga teachers, educators, mindfulness teachers is how do we be everything to everyone, right? How do we be culturally responsive? How do we meet the children where they're at? The
Mhm.
children want to see themselves in
Yeah.
their educators, right? And I understand from looking at your work that this is something that Climb is. It's very culturally responsive. And I think that was your personal mission, right?
That was definitely a part of it. I always say calm for every kid. Every young
Mm.
person deserves access to equitable mental and emotional health resource. And I mean, when I say every, I mean every. I loved how you defined it. It's cultural emotional literacy through culturally responsive tools. It's just kids connecting, or kids are able to connect when they see themselves in what they're learning. It's not overly complex. So just use culturally relevant scenarios and visuals. And also that supports the SEL skill of having empathy, of recognizing that people come from different backgrounds, different households, and there are multiple different ways to be a human being, and all of them can be validated. And the thing is, that is a skill that
Mm.
we can transfer to our children. So in Clom, what that means is that you're gonna see, some of our animations are gonna have, and it's so subtle. It's just like, okay, this story is about Priya and her family, and they're Indian American, and this story is about Jose and his family, and they're Mexican American, and it's all perfect. And we don't have to make a big deal about it. We just have to show that this is applicable to every human, regardless of the language that you speak or the politics in your home, or none of that actually matters. This is the work of being a human being. And so that is how I approach cultural responsiveness, just recognizing that humans do well when they see themselves and what's being offered to them. And the question that we as educators of these teachings can ask ourselves is, does this reflect my students world? And if it doesn't,
Mhm.
just adjust. It's just that simple. It might, and it might reflect some of your students world, and that's okay, and you just try to be as inclusive as you can be. I do think that there is a balance. I will say I don't think it's about pandering at all. It's about being authentic and real and keeping it simple. Again, this is literally just these are people who exist in the world, and they're just living
Right.
normal lives, going to the grocery store. Jose and his family are going to the grocery store. Jose has this experience. If you were Jose, what would you do? Very
Right.
simple. Yeah.
Right. And I think too, you look at that spectrum too, because even though it's taking a moment to understand what's under the surface, right? And so you could be in front of a child who may have a certain color skin, but when you go under it, there's much more complexity. And that's what we want to understand. We don't want to blanket, oh, this person has this color and that's how they're going to be and put them
That's
in that bucket.
exactly
Do you know what I
right.
mean? Yeah.
That's
And
exactly
so
right.
it's understanding what is the background of this child and this one and this one?
Yeah,
What are their needs? What are their preferences?
that's
And
right.
how do we help them along this journey, right? And so I'm thinking about, you've got so much data, I imagine. The more children, I think it was, I read 20,000 children have been through your platform. That's a lot of data that you've
Yeah.
collected, right? And you're looking at. So we're thinking about sort of our school-based professionals, right? So some of the challenges that we hear all the time, right? That there is no time. The curriculum is jammed packed, right? The demands are incredible. It's not human for what we ask for educators these days, right?
Yeah.
And the behavior issues are enormous. I was just
Yeah.
reading an article yesterday on EdWeb from a principal talking about the kindergarten students coming in are still having bigger tantrums than ever.
Yeah.
Even though we're 5 years on from COVID, right? It's
Yeah.
still all happening. So, looking at your data, looking at what we know are the challenges in education, what would you say? What are you seeing as sort of your three top tips? And how do we take, it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's not going to be fixed overnight, but what are some, 10% happier? What are some steps towards emotional health for children?
This is my number one for all adults. Model it.
Mm,
Model the behavior you want to see. Be the change you want to see in the world. I cannot tell you how much I see adults who mean well and really care about their children modeling poor emotional regulation. What you do is what your children will do. That's just how it works. So when adults can show calm and be calm and name their feelings, the kids will learn by example. That's the number one thing. The second thing is just start small. I know in education, there's not a lot of time, but 1 minute, 1 minute of a deep breathing exercise or a quick feeling check-in, if you do it in a way that it's systematic and it's consistent, it can shift first the day, but then the culture of your classroom. And if you take it to every classroom, then you're shifting the culture of your school. So all it takes is 1 minute. And then the third is I would say try to integrate what you're doing. Don't make it something completely different. So you tie in, I'm big on habit stacking. And basically, it's like you find the places where you already have a routine, and then you stack the habit on top of the place where you have the routine. So, in a school setting, you're going to stack your emotional skills routines into your morning meetings, into your transitions, into something that's already very natural and where you have the capacity to do it. And then it creates stickiness for you. And like I said, I am a big practitioner of habit stacking. It works. Yeah.
right. I love it. So number one was start with you. Number
Model it.
two is model it. Number two is starting small. And number three,
Yep.
integrate it, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's go back to that first one. So how does Climb, because you said, it's mostly built for the students, but you
Yeah.
you do say that it also supports the adults too, the grown-ups. How
Yeah.
what are some of your suggestions there?
So in the Clymb software, there's a parent portal. If you are a parent and you and your children are on Clymb, then there's also the educator portal. They have access to all of the resources as well. So if you are an adult and you want to support your young person, if you're in the system, keep in mind that kids co-regulate with adults. Like this is a shared experience. So the adult well-being is non-negotiable. I think that is a systemic thing that should be addressed at the level of the school district. I have a friend who has a organization called Happy Teacher Revolution, and she does the work that Clom does at scale for teachers. And so there
Mm,
should be more organizations like Happy Teacher Revolution in school systems because, again, kids are co-regulating with adults, and a school culture is the staff and the students together is what creates that. Um, and then, we have to also encourage at the level of the leadership self-compassion for the adults who are in the classroom with students. Like so often it's almost like a business model in some ways in the American education system. Like
yeah.
you have to make sure that the kids get these grades, have these test scores, and it's completely taken out that human element that the school day is dynamic. On any given day, a teacher could be dealing with any given kid with any given emotion. And
Mhm.
so having that self-compassion for our educators and bringing in micro practices for adults as a part of your school culture as well. We're not asking, I think that at the level of the teacher, I don't think it's fair of a school to say you need to practice mindfulness. But I do
Mhm.
think it's on the school to provide them with multiple resources, you know, all that are brain based, all that are science based, that they can pick and choose, that can help them throughout the school day, and more importantly, give them the time to do it.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that are top of mind.
Now, way you going back to the software. So you're talking about for the individual student. Can a teacher also play the activities for the whole class as well?
Right.
Yes.
The teacher also has
Okay.
all access to the resources and that's a model that we see quite often.
Yeah.
They'll use the resources as a brain break, or they'll break the kids up into groups. And some kids are doing this because you might notice that these group of kids all need support with one skill, and these group of kids all need support with another skill. So that is another
Right.
way to use it as well.
Right, because I definitely see in the classroom Go Noodle being used or other, I think there's calm.org maybe. There's a few that are sort of more push and play. But what I really appreciate about your software in particular is the basis in Castle, the basis in research, right? And the stacking of it, right? That you're
Mhm.
building on the skill. So it's more intentional, if you will, right?
Yeah,
It's more skill based.
that's
I think
right.
for those reasons, yeah. And then also you can see the data behind it. So it's
Mhm.
all encompassing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley, for building this software and for reaching our population, in this day and age. How do we find you online and what are you up to next?
Yeah, you can find us at Clymb. That's CLYMB up CLYMBUP.io. And what's next is we're powering forward. Our goal is to reach as many kids as possible. We're excited about some new on the horizon partnerships that we're hashing out right now that will allow us to reach a lot more children, and we're excited to partner with any school or educator who wants to make emotional health a part of every child's day. Like if you have that goal, we have that goal, and we want to help you meet it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll keep us posted. Hopefully we can join you on that mission.
Yeah.